The shocking revelations surrounding Sean "Diddy" Combs have sent shockwaves through the entertainment world, uncovering a dark web of manipulation, abuse, and exploitation. As the legal proceedings against him intensify, it's becoming clear that Diddy's empire is built on more than just music and business. It thrives on power, control, and a network of high-profile individuals complicit in his dangerous activities. From sexual assault allegations to claims of trafficking and manipulation, the floodgates have opened, and numerous celebrities are being dragged into the mess. Whether they are alleged victims, accomplices, or simply close associates, a growing list of stars is now facing scrutiny. In this exposé, we delve into the celebrities who are potentially going down with Diddy and the shocking details that could change everything. The myth of the family-oriented. Diddy, before the dark side of Diddy's life began to unravel, the public image of the mogul was that of a hard-working, family-oriented figure. He was often portrayed in the media as a doting father, especially after the birth of his children with multiple women. He frequently spoke about how important family was to him, portraying a softer, more relatable side of himself. This image was a far cry from the aggressive businessman and figurehead of a cutthroat industry that he truly was behind the scenes. Diddy's public persona was one of success and mentorship, often focusing on his role in shaping the careers of music stars like Usher, Justin Bieber, and many others. He was seen as a loving mentor who took young, struggling artists and transformed them into global icons. With his ever-present smile and refined appearance, he became the poster child for the self-made millionaire. But there was always a stark contrast between this carefully constructed image and the whispers that surrounded his personal life, particularly the notorious parties he hosted. The white parties, a glamorous facade. Diddy's parties, especially his iconic white parties, became legendary in the 1990s and 2000s. The concept was simple: a swanky, exclusive gathering where the rich and famous were invited to socialize in a lavish setting. These parties were known for their opulence, with guests often required to wear white clothing as a form of unity and luxury. Diddy's white parties were the epitome of extravagance, often held in some of the most luxurious locations, from his Hamptons mansion to private estates in Los Angeles. These events attracted celebrities like Leonardo DiCaprio, Ashton Kutcher, and even dignitaries and socialites from across the globe. On the surface, these white parties appeared to be harmless, a gathering of the world's elite enjoying an evening of high-end food, music, and company. But what most attendees didn't realize was that there was an entirely different dimension to these events, one that didn't become public until much later. These parties, while initially appearing innocent, were merely the precursor to something much darker that would unfold when the sun set and the real festivities began. The transformation from glamorous soirees to freak-off parties. By the mid-2000s, Diddy's parties had morphed into something more sinister. Once the evening's festivities wound down and the kids went home, things began to take a very different turn. What was once a fun gathering of the social elite transformed into a high-stakes game of power and control. The infamous freak-off parties were a far cry from the glamorous white parties that had once defined Diddy's gatherings. These freak-off parties, as they came to be known, were anything but ordinary. They were a dark underworld where the boundaries of morality and decency were blurred, and where the biggest names in Hollywood allegedly engaged in some of the most perverse and disturbing activities imaginable. Sources have claimed that what transpired at these after-hours events ranged from bizarre rituals and sexual exploitation to manipulative tactics and the trafficking of young, vulnerable people. The freak-off parties were a well-guarded secret, with only those in the innermost circles of Diddy's world being invited. The exclusivity of the events made them even more desirable to those looking to gain access to Diddy's vast network of influence. But as the years went by, the number of people coming forward with disturbing accounts of what happened behind closed doors grew. These testimonies painted a chilling picture of what these parties truly entailed. The allegations: blackmail, abuse, and exploitation. Whispers about what transpired behind the velvet ropes of Diddy's parties began to surface long before the legal investigations began. There were stories of celebrities being manipulated and exploited for personal gain, of women being coerced into sexual acts in exchange for career opportunities, and of young rising stars being exposed to dangerous situations that left them scarred for life. These allegations weren't just about debauchery. They spoke to a systemic culture of abuse and control that Diddy was allegedly at the center of. One of the most disturbing elements of these parties was the manipulation of power. Those who attended these after-hours events were often at the mercy of the mogul and his closest associates, who used their position to intimidate and control others. The more powerful figures in attendance, often the very people who had the most to lose, were forced to keep quiet about the dangerous activities that went on behind the scenes. The promise of fame, fortune, and success was a powerful tool for Diddy to keep people in line. At the heart of these parties was the notion that Diddy and his associates were untouchable. With his vast wealth and industry connections, he was able to keep his darker activities hidden from the public eye for years. Those who dared to speak out were either silenced or left with nothing but shattered careers and broken lives. The victims: celebrities who fell into Diddy's web. Over the years, several individuals who were once close to Diddy have come forward with harrowing stories of abuse and manipulation. Kim Porter, the mother of Diddy's children, was one of the most prominent victims in this saga. Her sudden death in 2018 raised many questions, with some speculating that she had been murdered due to her intention to write a tell-all book about her life and her experiences with Diddy. There were even claims that she had been poisoned before her death, a theory that was given credence by the toxicology report that revealed traces of toxins in her body. But Kim Porter wasn't the only victim. Diddy's former assistant, Jaguar Wright, has been vocal about the abuse she witnessed while working for the mogul. She has alleged that Diddy was involved in a series of violent and exploitative acts, including physical assaults on those who crossed him. Wright's whistleblowing has brought attention to the darker side of Diddy's life. And while some of her claims have been dismissed as outlandish, there are others who have corroborated her stories, adding weight to her accusations. The fallout. Who is next? As Diddy's empire starts to crumble under the weight of these revelations, many are left wondering who will be next to fall. The federal investigation into his activities is ongoing, and more arrests could be made as the truth comes to light. The question on everyone's mind is whether any of the celebrities who attended Diddy's freak-off parties or were involved in his shady dealings will be implicated. With the investigation still in its early stages, the list of potential suspects is long, and the consequences for those involved could be devastating. What makes this entire situation even more troubling is the realization that many of the people who were involved in Diddy's parties were complicit in the abuse and exploitation that occurred. Whether they were aware of the full extent of the darkness taking place behind closed doors or not, their silence and their participation helped to perpetuate a culture of secrecy and fear. As the truth continues to unfold, it's likely that more names will be added to the list of those implicated in Diddy's criminal activities. The broader implications: a culture of silence in the industry. What is perhaps most disturbing about the Diddy scandal is the fact that it reflects a broader culture of silence and complicity that has long existed in the entertainment industry. For years, celebrities, producers, and executives have been able to hide their misdeeds behind the shiny facade of fame and success. Diddy's case is just one example of how power can be used to control and exploit others for personal gain, and how those in positions of influence can operate with impunity for years without facing consequences. As the investigation into Diddy continues, it's clear that the story is far from over. The fallout from this scandal will likely ripple through the music industry, and many will be left to confront the darkness that has been hidden for so long. What began as a string of rumors and whispers is now a full-fledged investigation into one of the most powerful figures in entertainment. And the truth is starting to come to light. The consequences for those involved will be far-reaching, and it's clear that Diddy's reign may finally be coming to an end. The dark underworld of Diddy's inner circle. In the labyrinth of Hollywood, where power and fame are often intertwined with secrecy and manipulation, few have managed to operate in the shadows as effectively as Sean "Diddy" Combs. Known for his influential role in the music industry and his public persona as a charismatic mogul, Diddy has built an empire founded on both success and rumors. However, what has remained largely hidden from the public eye until recently are the grotesque undercurrents of his lifestyle, the freak-offs. Allegations have slowly emerged over the past several years, painting a chilling picture of a man who, behind his smiles and flashy appearances, controlled a world of exploitation, manipulation, and coercion. One of the most eye-opening revelations came from Tony Wilrich, known as the Gay Crisp, a partygoer who was allegedly recruited to attend Diddy's infamous freak-offs. Unlike most people who are lured into these worlds, Wilrich claims he was handpicked by Diddy's team. This was no ordinary invitation. "He doesn't reach out to you directly," Wilrich explained. "He has his people make contact, so it's all very secretive, very confidential." This careful secrecy is not just about maintaining Diddy's image, but ensuring that those who might pose a threat to his operations or expose the sinister activities are kept at bay. Wilrich's testimony underscores a key aspect of Diddy's method: control. Not everyone who attended his parties was fully aware of what they were stepping into. Many were invited into the orbit of a powerful man with a magnetic influence, but the deeper you went into his inner circle, the darker the truths became. These parties, often held at Diddy's sprawling estates and private retreats, were not just celebrations of excess. They were carefully orchestrated spectacles of decadence and depravity. The rise of the freak-off parties, a shocking revelation. The term freak-off has become synonymous with the dark side of Diddy's empire. Named in a way that implied an edgy, boundary-pushing affair, the parties went far beyond what anyone could have expected. According to testimonies, these events weren't just about opulence and luxury. They were about control and coercion. What began as a secretive gathering of influential individuals quickly escalated into something more dangerous, as those who entered were trapped in a world of drug-fueled debauchery, sexual exploitation, and, in some cases, blackmail. In March 2024, the truth finally began to surface when federal authorities raided Diddy's mansion. While the media initially speculated about the potential for drugs or weapons, nothing could have prepared the public for the horrifying discoveries that followed. Authorities seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large-capacity drum magazine. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. What was truly chilling were the findings that revealed the lengths to which Diddy had gone to create his dark and twisted world. Investigators uncovered evidence of what could only be described as organized sexual exploitation, electronic devices that contained disturbing images and videos of the freak-offs, with multiple victims caught on film. But it wasn't just the explicit footage that stood out. There were cases upon cases of personal lubricant and baby oil, allegedly used by Diddy's staff to stock hotel rooms, preparing them for the freak-offs. Over 1,000 bottles of these substances were found, prompting one shocked observer to remark on the sheer scale of the operation. The chilling allegations: blackmail, drugs, and coercion. Perhaps the most shocking aspect of the freak-offs was the role that drugs played in ensuring participants' compliance. As detailed in the testimonies and investigative reports, narcotics such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB were routinely used to keep individuals pliable and obedient to Diddy's desires. In one particularly disturbing account, Adria Sherry English, a woman who has come forward with a lawsuit, explained how Diddy's staff would spike bottles of liquor with illicit substances, targeting women who attended the parties. It was not just the women who were affected, however. A former drug dealer who catered to these parties described how he avoided the champagne flutes, knowing that they were often laced with dangerous substances. Even more chilling were the reports from those who had the unfortunate experience of attending these events. One young woman, Nikki Heaton, recounts a harrowing encounter at the age of 19, when she was allegedly drugged by Diddy and his associates during a night out with Kanye West. She describes a night of confusion and fear, where both she and her manager were given drinks laced with something that caused their behavior to change drastically. Heaton recalled how her manager, usually reserved, began acting erratically, her speech becoming louder and more forced. Heaton, recognizing the symptoms of intoxication, was horrified to see what was happening to her friend, and, by extension, to herself. The freak-off exposed a dangerous power play. At the core of the freak-offs was not just a culture of excess, but a carefully constructed system of manipulation and exploitation. According to the indictment that followed the 2024 raids, Diddy used threats of force and coercion to control his victims. The freak-offs weren't just parties, they were performances, and Diddy was the ringmaster, orchestrating each act with precision. It's alleged that these events often involved male commercial sex workers, some of whom were transported across state lines by Diddy's team. These events, described as lasting for days, were not merely sexual in nature. They were violent spectacles, involving drugs and alcohol to keep the participants in line. The fact that Diddy went so far as to film these events, capturing them from every angle, only adds to the sinister nature of his actions. According to one former insider, Diddy's mansion was equipped with multiple cameras, set up in strategic locations to record every detail of these horrific acts. The footage was then kept as insurance, ensuring that anyone who participated would remain silent or face the consequences of their involvement. It was, as one federal agent put it, just as bad as Epstein, referring to the infamous financier who exploited young women for powerful elites. The charade of charity. Internships as a pretext. One of the most chilling revelations comes from a reporter who had a long-standing professional relationship with Diddy. This individual, someone who had interviewed Diddy many times and even attended some of his infamous parties, recounts a disturbing encounter involving a family member. The reporter, eager to give their loved one an opportunity in the industry, reached out to Diddy for an internship. The internship was a brief but exciting period for the family member, until the moment Diddy's true nature was revealed. One fateful night, Diddy offered an ultimatum: either come home with me for the night, or the internship is over. This wasn't just a boundary-pushing power move, it was a calculated act of control. Diddy's manipulation of power, it seems, extended far beyond just business. If you weren't willing to comply with his demands, you risked losing everything, even something as seemingly benign as an internship. But this was merely the beginning. blackmail, and control. The hidden threat. Diddy wasn't merely an overbearing boss. He was an architect of fear. Many have claimed that anyone who dared to speak out against him or refuse his advances would be branded as crazy or dirty, with their careers and reputations systematically destroyed. This toxic dynamic was not just reserved for the artists who worked for him. It extended to anyone within his sphere of influence. For years, rumors circulated that Diddy had a collection of sensitive tapes and information about the people he encountered, information he could leverage to keep them silent. This level of manipulation wasn't just emotionally abusive, it was dangerous, with many fearing not only for their careers, but their physical safety. The true extent of his control over people's lives became evident when the music industry's most successful mogul was accused of heinous acts that stretched across decades. Human trafficking allegations, the cartel connection. While many attempted to discredit these accusations, some took the allegations to court. Diddy's involvement in the world of human trafficking surfaced during a controversial lawsuit filed by Alfredo P. Gonzalez, a member of the Sinaloa cartel. Gonzalez, now incarcerated, sued Diddy for defamation and loss of profits, but what's truly alarming is the content of the suit itself. Gonzalez claimed that Diddy's business partner approached him in May 2021 with a proposal to provide young girls and boys for an exclusive party in New York City. Gonzalez, initially receptive to discussing drug deals, was immediately horrified and refused the offer. He allegedly faced continued pressure from Diddy's associates, who even offered that Gonzalez could attend the party and watch the shows they put on. This story paints a chilling picture of a man who wasn't afraid to use his power and influence to facilitate horrific acts. Diddy's connections to criminal organizations were not simply rumors. They were linked to a sinister network of exploitation that extended well beyond the music industry, legal fallout, and growing lawsuits. As the allegations continued to pile up, legal battles intensified. Diddy, once untouchable, found himself entangled in over a dozen lawsuits. These weren't just isolated incidents, they were part of a growing pattern of abuse, exploitation, and manipulation. Attorneys involved in the cases reported an overwhelming response when they called for survivors to come forward, with over 3,000 individuals reaching out in just 10 days. Even after narrowing down the list to those with credible evidence, more than 120 lawsuits emerged from cities like Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. The victims' ages ranged from 38 down to just 9 years old, some of them allegedly abused during their time at Bad Boy Records. The youngest survivor, who was taken to an audition for Bad Boy Records as a child, recounts being sexually assaulted at the studio by Diddy and others. This incident represents only one example of the systemic abuse that spanned Diddy's career. A career built on the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. Cassie and the exposure of abuse. One of the most pivotal cases involved Cassie, Diddy's former girlfriend, and one of the most high-profile victims to speak out. Cassie, who had been romantically involved with Diddy for over a decade, filed a lawsuit in 2018 accusing him of repeated physical abuse, sexual coercion, and drugging her to maintain control. She wasn't the only one to speak out. Shocking footage surfaced showing Diddy chasing Cassie through a hotel, dragging her back into his room after she attempted to leave. Her story highlighted the darkest corners of Diddy's control tactics, hiding bruises, keeping her isolated, and using manipulation to maintain dominance. Kim Porter, Diddy's ex-girlfriend, was another woman caught in his web of abuse. Kim, who had reportedly been working on a tell-all book before her untimely death, allegedly gathered shocking revelations about Diddy's behavior. These revelations included accusations of Diddy getting Mary J. Blige pregnant and physical altercations between Diddy and Usher's mother. Some of these allegations were corroborated by lawsuits, including one in which Diddy was accused of giving Usher an STD, which resulted in a legal victory for the accuser. The enablers, celebrity complicity. Diddy's influence extended far beyond his inner circle. Celebrities, managers, and executives were often complicit in the abuse, whether through direct involvement or through their silence. Some of the most shocking revelations point to high-ranking executives like the CEO of Motown Records, Ethiopia Habtemariam, and Charles Grange, CEO of Universal Music Group, who allegedly profited from Lil Rod's exploitation. But it wasn't just record executives involved in Diddy's web of manipulation. Celebrities like Usher, who was allegedly victimized by Diddy at a young age, and Steve Harvey, whose friendship with Diddy has long raised eyebrows, are also part of this chilling tale. Usher's tragic involvement in this pattern of abuse was hidden from the public for years, but his connections to Diddy as both a mentor and alleged victim complicate his public image. The enormity of the scandal. The revelations surrounding Diddy have exposed an empire of exploitation and control that many never could have imagined. What started as whispers and rumors is now a growing, undeniable reality. As the legal battle intensifies and more victims come forward, the full extent of Diddy's dark legacy may be revealed in its entirety. The toll on his victims is immeasurable, with many still dealing with the long-lasting effects of their trauma. The question now is not just how far Diddy's influence reaches, but how deep this web of corruption truly goes. As more names are revealed and more lawsuits are filed, one thing becomes clear. Diddy's reign is far from over, but the consequences are catching up to him.